great. I love it because now I get to chat with you for a second. This is wonderful. Yeah, this is not what I expected, and
I'm sorry.
no, it's not you. You're not the only one who's had this issue, and I think it's whether you go. Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. Whether you go on from your phone or whether you use your laptop. I
Okay.
use my phone all the time because I can't do it from my laptop.
Oh, okay. I'm on my
I should have
laptop.
told you that. I'm like, no,
Oh,
I'm sure she knew.
okay.
No, she doesn't know. Okay, hi everyone.
Hello.
We had to change our venue. I'm here with Jessica. Yay! She was supposed to. This was her show alone. She's gonna do this like fly solo tonight, but we had some technical issues, which
It's
we
always
deal with,
better
right?
with you, though.
I know. No, I'm kidding. So, so Jess is gonna do her thing. She's going
Okie
to
dokie.
read from her book. I'm telling you, it's cool. It's cool. Yes. Oh, it's even the right way around. Hold it up again. Over. There you go. Oh, it looks so good. Okay,
I'm
so
technically challenged.
yeah. I'm just gonna I'm letting it slide. I'm just whoosh, you're not the only one. And yeah, you're not the only one, trust me. So say hi to her. She's gonna chat with you. I'm gonna like fade out and shh. I'm going to fade. Fade. Okay, because we have like things going on here. There's like so, okay. Have fun with it, Jess, and
Okay, well,
bye. See you in an hour, right?
see you in an hour.
I'll pop back in.
Okay. Bye. All right, guys. It's just me now. So I thought, for those of you who don't know, my name is Jessica Martinez, but my pen name is Jessica Marie Holt, and my other pen name, as you can see, is J.M. Holt, and that is exclusively for this series. This is the first and so far only book in this series, but I have another one planned for summer. I decided to switch things up and read a little bit from this one. First of all, because I think it's a fun thing to read aloud because it's action and adventure, I guess, and also because it's a really cool book, and because it's not under my original pen name, not too many people even really know it exists. So it's always a fun thing to share it with people. So the reason that I wrote it was because honestly, I wanted to write something that I thought my husband would have fun reading, just something that wasn't a romance or something that was more up his alley. And I really wanted to challenge myself and see if I could do it. And it was the biggest writing challenge of my whole life. And I about died writing this book, as you know, Anne would testify. I messaged her crying several times, and but I did it, and I'm excited about that, and it was fun, and it was a huge challenge that made me tear my hair out, but it was fun, and I'm dreading writing the second one a little bit because this is not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of research, tons and tons of research. And then the storyline is hard because you have to keep all the threads together. You have to build in the suspense. You have to do a lot of things to get this kind of story where it needs to be. And the other thing about this book is that it's a little bit different. It is a thriller, it is a spy novel, but it's also got a little bit of the quirkiness and humor and fun of a cozy mystery. So it's a little bit, I wanted to do something ambitious, which is part of the reason it was difficult, and write something that was a little bit of both things, not such a thriller that it was terrifying, and not so cozy that you lost the suspense aspect of it. So I am pretty proud of it, and I think without further ado, I'll start reading. So let me just adjust this so I'm not I don't get swallowed up by the book. Okay. My husband helped me with this to the point where he just had enough, by the way. So I have to give him credit. He was immensely instrumental in me ever getting this off the ground. All right. Levi. First part. It was hopeless, and Levi knew it, but he was running anyway. His heart thudded in his ears. His steps pounded on the wet pavement. The misting rain flew into his face like tiny cold needles, obscuring his vision. His lungs screamed for relief. Just a few hours earlier, he was walking along the Seine in the sunlight, browsing bouquiniste stands for old books and newspapers, and watching painters work their magic on the Pont des Arts, just like he and Arthur had always used to do on surveillance jobs in Paris. Now he tore through the lamplit streets and the narrow, dark alleyways of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, the lights, noise, and fairy tale charms of the 6th arrondissement swallowed up entirely by his frantic, instinctual desire to survive. They had found him just as he was coming out of a quaint but swanky little restaurant on Rue Bonaparte with a sultry brunette he was supposed to charm into becoming an asset. 3 of them had formed an arc, blocking his way down the sidewalk. As he glanced around, he could spot more of them standing around on the street and by the restaurant door. He knew exactly who they were and what they wanted just from the sight of them. The way they carried themselves, stiff, granite-faced, nothing like the carefree crowds ambling from venue to venue around them, and too obvious to be operatives of any kind. Levi didn't bother waiting for them to say or do anything. He just followed his gut and ran. As soon as they came tearing after him, he knew he was right. He had given his pursuers a good chase so far, but he was almost spent. There were fewer of them now, but those that remained were so close behind him that he could hear their tattered breathing. They'd never give up. If they didn't tackle him tonight, they'd hunt him down and drag him off tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that. That was just the way they did things. They'd keep him alive long enough to torture him for information, but they'd kill him in the end. Yes, he was a dead man the moment Frank opened his big, fat, traitorous mouth. He had trusted the wrong person, and he was probably going to pay with his life. But no one else would. This would end with him. He'd make sure of it. He just needed a moment to breathe and think. He veered right at the next fork in the road, then made a quick left at the last second, forcing his pursuers to play catch-up. He ducked down a narrow alleyway behind a busy restaurant and a row of shops. 2 metal trash cans sat by the restaurant's back door. He tossed them over, sending a cat screaming into the night. The smell of rotting vegetation, old beef, and sour wine filled the chilly air. His tired assailants were forced to pause, then clamber over the mess, buying Levi precious time. He ran down the alley and tried the next door he saw. It was unlocked. He opened the door and stepped into the building. Then he shut it and locked it behind him. Seconds later, the handle rattled and fist pounded on the door, shaking it. Then everything went quiet. He reasoned they had decided to wait him out instead of making a scene. The room Levi stood in was dimly lit and smelled of cardboard, roses, and cinnamon. It was warm and quiet. He leaned against the door, shaking and breathing hard. As his eyes adjusted and his mind cleared, he took stock of his surroundings. Piles of cardboard boxes were stacked up haphazardly, and wooden shelves ran along the walls, stuffed with cleaning supplies, tools, and numbered containers full of odds and ends he couldn't make out. A small sink stood in one corner of the room near an interior door, next to a mop and bucket. He seemed to be in a boutique storeroom. Immediately, he considered the exits. Most likely, there were only 2, the large door he just came through and the front door that led out to the street. His hand throbbed, and he looked down at it. A sizable wound ran from the top of his wrist to the end of his index finger. Blood was pooling at his fingertips and dripping on the floor. He must have cut himself on something in one of the trash cans. He looked around the shelves and found rubbing alcohol. Gritting his teeth, he doused the wound and wrapped it in paper towels that sat next to the sink. He secured the paper towels with packing tape he found on top of a box. Levi longed to believe that if he waited long enough, the thugs would give up and leave. But he couldn't kid himself. They wouldn't give up. They used whatever time he spent in here to regroup and strategize. He couldn't keep running forever. He needed a plan, a good plan. What would Arthur do? He searched his brain and came up empty. He looked around the room again, and his eye fell on a bottle of some kind of chemical. A skull and crossbones image was stamped on the front. Suddenly, he had a plan. A thudding sound made him look up. A tall, middle-aged woman in heavy makeup came through the door that divided the storeroom from the shop. She caught sight of him and screamed, then took a step backwards and stared at him, taking in his disheveled appearance and his bleeding hand. She grabbed the hand. Qu'est-ce que time? He glanced backwards at the door and decided he was better off going through the front exit. More opportunities to get lost in the crowd. His hand toward the woman. Je ne vais pas te faire de mal. She waved the mop handle at him, clearly not believing his promises to do her no harm. He stopped. Je veux seulement passer, c'est tout. She wavered for a second. C'est tout? Feeling hopeful, he took a few more steps forward. C'est tout. That's all. Just let me pass. No! She stabbed the air fiercely with her weapon of choice. Levi strode towards her. She screamed again. As soon as he was within arm's length, she began swinging the mop handle at him. One blow connected with his shoulder, and one narrowly missed his head. Within seconds, he had grabbed the handle, flipped it, and disarmed her. Her eyes grew round, and she gasped. Laissez-moi passer, he said. She obliged him this time and stepped to the side to let him by. He nodded at her. Merci. As he walked through the door, she ran after him, shouting, La police! Brigitte, appelle la police! Seconds later, a woman was on the phone with the emergency operator while the mop handle woman shouted things at her. Levi ran out the door and onto the sidewalk and looked to the left and right. All clear. He immediately took off in his planned direction. A minute later, a large hand clasped his shoulder. Levi tried to push the hand off, but the assailant's grip was too tight. So he grabbed it firmly instead, jerked his elbow upward, and turned, forcing the thug's arm to twist outward. He grabbed the thug's shoulder, then kneed him in the groin. As soon as he doubled over, Levi hit him with a fierce uppercut to the jaw. The man staggered back, then fell to his knees, his head down, blood dripping from his face. He was a huge bear of a man, a fact Levi was glad he hadn't fully noticed before he'd taken him on. A crowd gathered and sirens wailed close by. Levi took off running. 3 more thugs were on his tail within seconds. He ran down a few more streets until he reached Pont Neuf. The bridge sat, tranquil and immovable, aglow with light that shimmered in the still waters of the Seine. In the distance, the Eiffel Tower loomed. The moon hung low and large in an almost starless sky. Levi raced across the bridge, jostling his way through dog walkers, lovers, and people staring absently out at the cityscape. His pursuers stayed doggedly behind him. Midway through the bridge, he tripped on an old man's cane. His foot doubled under him, sending a shock of pain through his ankle and up his leg. He righted himself, limping for a moment until he adjusted to the pain. He glanced around. They were right behind him. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to speed up. He made it over the bridge and to the right bank. Just a little farther to go. The first arrondissement was old, ancient even, and full of secrets. Secrets Arthur always felt compelled to share with Levi, whether he was interested or not. One of those secrets would come in handy now. Levi headed toward a quiet part of the neighborhood with sleepy houses, few cars, and fewer pedestrians. He turned down several side streets until he spied what he was looking for. A weight lifted off him. Maybe he wasn't doomed. He glanced behind him. His pursuers were rounding the last corner. He ran up a large metal grate, almost hidden in the street, and pulled it up. Beneath the grate was a tunnel that ran straight down. Levi reached for the ladder, welded into the tunnel wall. He climbed a few rungs down, then reached up and replaced the grate. He climbed lower and lower down. The air grew denser and colder, and the smell of earth and dust and dankness grew stronger. Eventually, he reached solid ground. Any light that had come through the grate was swallowed up. He was completely enveloped in darkness. He took his high-power flashlight from his pocket and flicked it on. Then he shuddered. As many times as he had been in the Paris catacombs, he could never get used to the chill, or the smell, or the sinister otherworldly feel of it. 6 million people are buried down here. He could almost hear Arthur's odd voice whispering the words. He, Arthur, and a few other operatives they trusted used this section of underground tunnels as a meeting place, a dead drop zone, and a safe haven whenever they were in Paris. Aside from being a chilling, morbid experience, it was always a gamble. Going into the catacombs through secret entrances was illegal. The cops would sometimes temporarily block off entrances. You could never be sure of getting in when you wanted to. It was also dangerous. Once in, one wrong turn could get you hopelessly lost in the stone labyrinth, and then you risked dying of hypothermia, exhaustion, or dehydration. Arthur had mapped out a route for them with an exit at a completely different part of the city. He'd placed reflectors all along the route, one at every turn or fork. A reflector on the right side meant to turn right. One on the left meant to turn left. Two on each side indicated that you had to go straight. So getting around was just a question of shining a flashlight from side to side until you could see the reflectors. Levi made his way through the tunnel, still limping slightly. At least he could move more slowly now. The silence was eerie. The dank smell was awe-consuming. Occasionally, his flashlight would illuminate a neatly stacked pile or wall of old bones, the skulls sitting in rows, all of their empty eyes staring at him at once. In spite of his surroundings, Levi felt more hopeful with each step. Sure, they'd hunt him down again, but he might actually live long enough to do something about it. He finally reached the end of the route, where he could see light filtering in from the grate at the exit. He climbed up the rock formation that led to it, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at the grate. His stomach dropped, and his heart nearly stopped. It was padlocked on both sides. Yellow police tape was strewn across it, and cinder blocks sat in front of it. Levi slumped down and sat on the rock, his head in his hands. He sat like that for a long time. Finally, he looked up. He had two choices. He could risk trying to find a new route to the outside somewhere, or he could go back the way he came and risk capture. He looked into the black, eerie void in front of him. He had one choice. At some point during his dismal walk back through the tunnel, between his existential dread and his internal musings about what a country boy from Virginia was doing wandering around in the bowels of Paris, he had a thought. He took a scrap of paper and a pen from his pocket and scribbled a note. He swung his light around until a reflector on a pillar winked back at him. He groped around the pillar until he found a loose stone, the dead drop spot where he and Arthur had always left each other messages. He put the piece of paper behind the stone and wedged it back into place. Levi slid the grate open and climbed out to the street level, blinking rapidly in the moonlight. The streets were empty as far as he could see. He stuffed his hands in his pockets and walked toward the metro. He was done running. He'd only gone a block before he was surrounded by three familiar figures. For a second, he thought of fighting back, opening fire, but he was outnumbered 3-1 and they all had guns. He'd be dead on the spot. They wanted him alive, so he decided his best bet was to let them take him and hope for a way out later. His captors huddled closely around him. None of them spoke. Levi's heart hammered in his chest and in his ears. But his mind felt strangely calm. A beefy, ugly bear of a guy with full, flabby lips, tiny eyes, and a nose that looked like it had been broken once or twice grabbed Levi by the arm. Levi could see blood crusted around the man's mouth and nose. It was the same man who had grabbed him outside the boutique. He was just now seeing his face. "We meet again," Levi said with a wry smile. The man grunted in response. He twisted Levi's arm so that he was forced to turn around, then he bound his wrists together slightly with a zip tie. Levi winced at the pain and felt a fresh gush of blood run down his hand. Then the dark-haired guy took Levi's gun. A different guy. A shorter, good-looking man with a full dark beard and dark eyes that glinted in the lamplight pulled out his phone and began texting. The third man, a tall, lanky redhead with ghostly white skin and crazy eyes, lit a cigarette with shaky fingers. The dark-haired man's phone pinged, and he glanced at it. "They're coming," he said in a thick accent Levi couldn't place. "They're bringing the car." The other two nodded. They stood there, a somber, silent foursome. Levi thought about what a strange thing it was for them all to just stand around in the dark, in the rain, waiting for a car that would most likely take him to his death, as though they were waiting for a ride to the airport. Levi was somehow expecting a single glossy black sedan, but instead two cars pulled up. One was a powder blue Peugeot, and the other was a red Fiat. He was shoved unceremoniously into the back seat of the Fiat, and the dark-eyed man and the redhead crowded in beside him. A mixture of pungent cologne and cigarette smoke filled the air inside the car. He didn't ask where they were going. It didn't matter. They sat swaying in unison as the driver turned down endless narrow back streets and alleyways. Twice Levi felt sure he would be sick, but he held it in. He looked out the window at the black void, punctuated every so often with streetlights and lights from still open shops and restaurants. He always wondered how he would go out, what that day would be like, what the last things he'd do and see would be. Now he knew. Levi tried to keep track of where they were, but they were winding through an industrial part of Paris he was unfamiliar with. When they crossed the Porte à l'Anglais bridge, however, he realized they were heading for Vitry-sur-Seine. The cars pulled up to a stop near the quay. All of the goons got out, 7 in total. The dark-haired one pulled him out and instructed the large one to secure him. He obliged and put his giant hand assertively around the nape of Levi's neck. His palm was sweaty. Levi shuddered. They all headed down the quay and stopped in front of a warehouse. The door was open and the inside was pitch dark. Levi looked around for a possible way out. He created, then dismissed several different plans until he came up with something half-baked but plausible. If he could get near the edge of the quay and get his hands free, he could jump suddenly before they had time to shoot him and swim for it. Sure, the water was nasty, and he might only end up delaying the inevitable, but right that moment, he was only interested in buying time. Buying hope, really. They waited, giving Levi a moment to ruminate. He should have listened to Arthur. Cautious, thorough, always right Arthur. He had warned Levi more than once that his impulsiveness would be his undoing. Levi closed his eyes and took a breath. You couldn't find a truer friend than Arthur. He would do him justice, whatever it cost. After a moment, the red-orange glow of a cigarette appeared in the darkness of the warehouse and moved slowly toward them. At the sight of it, the big man tightened his grip on Levi's neck so abruptly that he grimaced in pain. As the light came closer, Levi could first make out the outline of a man, and then the man himself appeared in the lamplight. Levi peered at him. In spite of his ever-increasing sense of doom, or maybe in part because of it, he was curious. Not many people could ever say they looked into the face of Jonas Wolf. It was a handsome face with defined cheekbones, sunken-in cheeks, and large, round, ice-blue eyes that would have made him look boyish if they weren't so cold and lifeless. His dark hair was neatly combed, and he wore an expensive-looking black pea coat and red knitted gloves. He approached Levi with slow, deliberate steps. "Let him go," Jonas said in a soft but cold voice, tinged with an Eastern European accent. Levi's captor dropped his hand from Levi's neck with lightning speed. Jonas reached out his own hand and put it around Levi's throat, up by his jaw. His fingers were long and sure, and his grip was crushing. Levi struggled for air. "I could kill you now," Jonas said. "I very badly want to, but I won't." He relaxed his grip and let go. "Look, I'm a simple man. I like money, and I like power. I do what I can to keep them both. You understand. But this, between you and I, this is deeply personal." A sad and broken expression crossed his face, making him look almost human. Levi almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Since I like simple, I will make this simple," Jonas continued. "Tell me what I want to know now, and maybe I don't shoot you in the head and throw you in the river." Levi said nothing. He was thinking for some reason of Kate. Arthur's Kate, as he always had to remind himself. He could just see her green eyes and that pretty red dress she wore that one time. Jonas didn't have the leverage he imagined. Levi would never betray Arthur, but he'd put a bullet in his own head before he ever let anything happen to Kate. "All right, then," Jonas said. "I suppose you think you're brave, but I have made braver men than you talk. Bring him into the warehouse." The goons surrounded him, blocking his chance of escape. The bear man gripped him by the neck again. While everyone else was focused on Jonas, Levi had slipped a bobby pin from his waistband with his fingers. He kept it there for picking locks and undoing zip ties. He managed to slip the pin between the ratchet and teeth of the tie and pull it open. He whipped around and stunned the bear man with a crunching blow to his fat, crooked nose. Then in one swift motion, he slid his legs behind the goons, crouched down, and turned forcefully, sending him toppling over his knee. As soon as he was down, Levi took his gun back and pointed it at the crowd. They all drew their guns. "Shoot me or come and take me," Levi said. He backed up slowly, one step at a time, keeping the edge of the quay in mind. "Remember, I'm the only one who can tell you what you want to know." With every step, his fear dissipated and his rage increased. Rage for himself, for Arthur, for Kate, and for all the other people boxed into corners by evil forces outside their control. He made it to the end and mentally prepared himself to jump. Staring at their simple, slack-jawed faces of the goons, he suddenly decided to take out as many as he could on his way down. Maybe he'd even get lucky and take out the kingpin himself. He started shooting wildly. He was pleased to see at least 2 of Jonas's men go down. But some of them instinctively began firing back, in spite of Jonas's sharp orders to stop. Time to jump. Levi leaped off the quay. As soon as he was in midair, a bullet caught him in the side. He immediately went limp and fell into the river like a rock. The frigid waters of the Seine closed over his head. Arthur was right in the end, he thought. He always is. Then the world went black. That was the first part. I'm sorry. And then I'll read a little part of chapter 1 so we get to meet Arthur. Arthur sat in his chair by the fireplace, reading the local paper. He wasn't as close to the fire as he would have liked. The dog had claimed the hearth as usual and was happily sprawled out in the warmest spot. When Arthur and Kate had talked about getting a dog, Arthur had in mind a German Shepherd or a Doberman. From what he could tell, this scruffy little thing was a mix between a Jack Russell Terrier and something lazy and compliant. Kate had rescued him from the side of the road, and her sorrowful pleading had easily mowed over his objections. The clock chimed 6 just as he reached the sports section, right on time. Arthur went to the hallway coat rack and retrieved his tweed sport coat, leather flat cap, and knitted scarf. He put them on, then opened a drawer in the base of the rack and took out his Smith & Wesson M&P. He slid the magazine into the grip, checked the chamber, cocked the trigger, then slipped the gun into his coat pocket holster. Then he took the leash from its hook and whistled softly. The dog pricked his ears up and opened his eyes, but didn't otherwise move. "Come on, Danger," Arthur said cheerfully. The dog wagged its tail but squirmed defiantly. "Come on, Danger," Arthur repeated. This time his voice was soft and low, but hard as steel. The dog jumped up and walked over, his head bowed. Arthur scratched his ears. "Good boy. Good boy." The pup wriggled with joy. Arthur hooked the leash onto Danger's collar, walked to the door, and looked out the peephole. All clear. He turned the jimmy-proof deadbolt, slid out the bolt latch, and unhooked the chain latch. Then he opened the door, stepped outside, and locked it behind him. Excuse me 1 second. The sun had already set. The darkness yawned in front of him, cavernous and cold. The only light came from the moon, which hung low and large and was half shrouded in clouds, and the street lamps, which formed a line of glowing orbs that wound down the sloping street and around the cul-de-sac. Arthur shrugged a bit deeper into his coat and stifled a shiver. He scanned the street to either side. There was nothing amiss in the lamplight, but it was the shadows that mattered. He grabbed his tactical flashlight from the pocket of his jeans and flicked it on. The dog whimpered and wriggled beside him, but stayed put until Arthur said, "All right, boy, let's go." Arthur walked with even, confident steps. Danger, who always preferred running to walking, worked hard to keep his master's steady pace. As they walked, Arthur whistled an old army song. The soft, clear notes rose up into the night and were absorbed away into the dark sky. Arthur focused on watching and listening. Everything was completely still. The only movement, other than theirs, came from shifting shadows as clouds swirled past the moon. The only sounds, aside from his whistling, were the jingle of Danger's collar and the very faint shuffling of his own footsteps. As they moved along the street, he swung his flashlight from side to side, illuminating dusky corners and the interiors of empty cars parked along the curb. Nothing and no one to worry about. Arthur let his shoulders relax a little and slowed his pace a bit more. The snap of a twig split the silence. Arthur stopped short. He turned his flashlight in the direction of the sound. Nothing. He took a step forward and the leash went taut. Danger wouldn't move. Arthur looked down at him. The dog stood rigid, his hackles up, fixated on something across the street. A second later, he let out a snarl, then a low, guttural growl. Danger never growled at anyone on the street. Heart racing, Arthur swung his flashlight toward the dog's line of sight, just in time to see a flash of movement between two large trees. A shadowy figure darted through the side yard of a house. Arthur thought he caught sight of an arm and a shirt sleeve, but the figure disappeared into the darkness before he could be sure. He rubbed his forehead, his mind racing. A glaring light sent shock through the darkness. Arthur turned toward the source, putting his hand up in front of his face to shield his eyes. A sedan parked on the street just behind him had suddenly come to life. A moment after the headlights came on, the engine growled, then hummed. Arthur's heart was pounding now. He had checked that sedan, and it was empty. Why hadn't he heard footsteps, seen movement, heard a car door open and close? The car pulled away from the curb and drove slowly forward, far more slowly than necessary. Arthur slid his hand into his pocket and grabbed his gun handle. As the car passed him, he peered into the driver's side window. The driver turned his head and looked at him full in the face. He was youngish, mid-30s maybe, with a shaved head, large, sad eyes, and thin lips pursed into a tight line. He wasn't a neighbor or anyone Arthur knew, but something about him seemed familiar. Seconds later, the man turned his attention back toward the road and drove off, leaving Arthur rattled and breathless on the sidewalk. The only thing he could think about was his unbolted door. He bolted toward home, with Danger scrambling to keep up. Once he reached his house, he swept the perimeter and checked the back and front door. Then he unlocked the front door, went inside, and bolted it shut. "Kate!" he yelled out. No answer, just the soft popping of the fire as it died, and the sound of the clock chiming the half hour. He ran to the kitchen. The oven was on. Dinner was in a baking dish on the stove. 2 plates sat beside it, but Kate wasn't there. He checked the garage and the guest bath. Empty. "Katie!" he shouted, his heart slamming against his ribs. He ran up the stairs just as she was walking down. When she saw the look on his face, she froze. "What's going on, Arthur? What happened?" "Where were you?" he thundered. "I was calling you." "I was in the bathroom," she said, her green eyes agitated. "I used the mixer to make some shortbread, and I put it on the wrong setting. Flour and powdered sugar flew everywhere. I had to change my clothes and wash up. I had the sink running. I didn't hear you until just now. What's wrong?" "They found us." He shuddered. She furrowed her brow. "Why do you say that?" "I saw a figure running through the trees. Danger was growling at him." "Danger was growling?" "Yes. And there was a man. He just appeared out of nowhere in a car that I swear to you was empty. Drove past me slowly, staring. Not a neighbor. Not anyone I know." Arthur could hear how unconvincing his words sounded, especially standing in their snug, warmly lit home, where it was much harder to imagine the evils of the dark outside world, even for him. Kate paused a moment. "Okay, those are odd things, but they don't have to mean anything. The figure could have been a deer or some teenager hanging out somewhere he didn't belong, doing something he shouldn't. And the man could have been a friend of a neighbor's, or anyone, really." She looked at him intently. "No one has found us." He breathed out a frustrated sigh. "You don't know that. You can't know that." "I can't know anything for sure, but I'm as sure as it can be that we're safe here. We live in a small town no one's ever heard of, and you work in a flyover city no one moves to unless they're out of options. We have new identities, new jobs. I'm a blonde now." She smiled and patted her hair. "You have a beard. We've done everything right. You've done everything right. What if it's not enough? What if—" He squeezed his eyes shut. A dull pain tugged at his temples. He didn't want to imagine the worst, but he couldn't keep the thoughts from coming. "You've been having nightmares again," Kate said, her eyes tinged with concern. He nodded sheepishly. She walked down the steps that remained between them until she was on the one just above his. He still towered over her. She slid her arms around his waist and held him tightly. He reached up and caressed her golden hair. He missed her auburn curls. He missed a lot of things. "The nightmares aren't real," she murmured. "We're real, and we're making this work. It's going to be okay." He was almost lulled into peace by her softly beating heart and the feel of her body against his. But then he remembered himself. He pulled back, grabbed her by the shoulders, and looked her in the eye. "From now on, when I leave, I want you to bolt the door behind me." "Arthur," she said, her eyebrows pinched together in frustration. "Just do it," he said. "Please." She sighed wearily. "All right, if I promise to bolt the door, can we go have our dinner?" He smiled and kissed the top of her head. "Yes. Let me go wash up first." Arthur went into the bathroom and ran a washcloth under some cold water. He pressed it into his eyes, then wiped his face with it. The chill made him feel more alert and less scattered. He had to stay focused and keep himself together. He couldn't afford to overlook a single thing, but he also couldn't descend into paranoia. He was on a tightrope with no net, and a fall in either direction would be deadly. He gripped the sides of the sink and looked at himself in the mirror. The older he got, the more he saw his own father looking back at him. He'd always taken comfort in the fact that the only things they had in common were their name, their blue eyes, their well-defined jaw, and their dark, unruly hair. But now he wasn't so sure. Arthur had never lied and pandered his way into political gain, engaged in dirty quid pro quo deals, or tried to sweep his mistress's mysterious death under the rug. And he hadn't left a destructive trail of double dealings, broken promises, and bad acts in his wake, and then tried to convince everyone it was all for the greater good. He had, however, spent years doing bad things for very good reasons. And maybe it had finally caught up with him. In a half second, the time it took to pull a trigger, he made the worst possible mistake, one he kept reliving again and again in his nightmares, one that marked him and Kate for death and sent them into hiding. Maybe some legacies couldn't be escaped, no matter how hard you tried. Arthur wiped his face once more with a washcloth and went into the living room to rekindle the fire. Once that was done, he went to the dining room, set the table, and sat down. Danger trotted over and stood at the border between the dining room and the living room, as close to the table as Arthur would allow, hoping some scraps would roll his way. Kate came in a moment later with their dinner plates. After she set them down, she kissed Arthur's cheek and tousled his hair playfully. "Hey," he said, grabbing at his arm so he could return the favor. Laughing, she evaded his grasp and ran around the table to her seat. Arthur stared her down as he smoothed his hair out. She stared right back, her cheeks red as she suppressed a giggle. "Put more gel in it," she teased. "I was actually able to move a few strands." "Ha! You know how my hair is. It takes serious work just to get it to stay in place and look decent. Besides, there's nothing wrong with being well-groomed." "No, nothing." She smiled at him, her eyes sparkling, her mouth turned up in a flirtatious grin. "Wild man hair, perfect hair. I like you every which way." Heat rose up in his face and his shirt collar suddenly felt too tight. She still had that effect on him after 5 years of marriage. She probably always would. He cleared his throat and focused on his dinner. "So how was your day?" "Oh, fine, I guess, the usual. I made a new friend at work, Allison Edwards, a new hire, special ed teacher." Arthur set his fork down and drew his eyebrows together. "You don't have to worry about Allison," said Kate. "You couldn't find anyone more harmless. You should see her with those kids. They light up when she's around. She has a knack for getting the best out of them, no matter what kind of disabilities they have. I'm hoping to learn a thing or two from her." "Still struggling with the job?" "A little. I mean, I don't dislike kids. I want kids." She blushed slightly and looked down. "Someday, when this whole thing is behind us." Arthur's heart constricted painfully. He took her hand in his. "It will be. Someday soon." She nodded without looking up. "Anyway, I'm not used to children, and it turns out I'm not a natural. I did always prefer horses to baby dolls." She smiled wryly. "It's easy to manage a single horse, no matter how stubborn or finicky he is. You've no idea how hard it is to herd a bunch of kids down a hallway, or to get them to sit still and listen, or to keep them from putting things in their mouths or up their noses. And I'm only a teaching assistant, not even a teacher." Arthur nodded. "I can only imagine." She laughed, her eyes brightening. "No, you can't. You only teach twice a week, and your students are adults. Teaching adults can be a challenge." She raised an eyebrow at him. "I bet you not one of your students has ever asked for 5 potty breaks and then wet their pants anyway." He laughed loudly. "That's very true. I mean, half the class left in the middle of my lecture yesterday, but that only bruised my ego. It didn't soil any chairs." He looked down at the table and squeezed her hand. "I know this hasn't been easy for you, but that job was the best option available. You look the part of a young, pretty school teacher, and it's so different from anything in your employment history." He shrugged. "It's a good cover." "I know, and it's all right. I knew when I married you that life would be an adventure. Of course, I never would have considered manning a room full of 6 and 7-year-olds particularly perilous, but that's what adventures are all about, right? The unexpected." Arthur smiled. Kate always managed to see things in the best possible light. It was the thing he loved most about her, but it was also the thing that made her the most vulnerable. His smile faded. "You are taking this seriously, though." She sighed. "Yes, Arthur, I am taking it very seriously, and I will be careful, but I will not live in fear. That isn't a life at all." She looked at him with solemn eyes. "My father always said that fear is a liability. Then it makes you careless and sloppy." "So does overconfidence," Arthur retorted. They stared at each other in silence, the clock ticking relentlessly behind them. Kate smiled. "I guess we will just have to meet in the middle." "I guess you're right," Arthur said. After dinner, they had dessert, then coffee, then the wine Kate always managed to produce from somewhere when Arthur had one of his bad days. Glassy-eyed, Arthur watched her as she talked, taking in her soft curls, her happy expression, her pretty mouth. "We'll have it all," he said suddenly. "Have what all?" she said, tilting her head in confusion. "All the things we always talked about. The kids, the 100-year-old house, the horse farm in the Carolinas. I promise. I believe you, Arthur." He couldn't help himself. He leaned towards her, cupped her head in his hand, drew her toward him, and kissed her softly. Arthur was much calmer by the time they went to bed, but he still couldn't sleep. He sat in a chair by the bedroom window in his flannel pajamas, nursing another glass of wine and glancing every so often at Kate's sleeping form. Gun in his lap, he watched the quiet cul-de-sac until the sky turned pink and the glowing orbs faded one by one. I think that's a really good place to stop. I know I have a few more minutes, but I think that's a good place. Just to say a little more about this book, it was a tremendous challenge to write, and I did not enjoy every minute of it, like I mentioned, but it has a special place in my heart, and actually reading it over again makes me a little nostalgic and makes me feel like I am excited to tell the rest of this story, because it was because I'm attached to Arthur and I'm attached to Kate. And I feel like it has inspired me a little, actually, to keep going. So that's a good thing.
This book, okay, so Jess is right. She she was really freaking out about writing it, which I totally get, because just that catacomb scene blows me away. There is so much description and so much research that goes into it.
There was. And I actually have to credit my friend for that, because I had sent her the original first chapter, and she was like, okay, I like it, but it's not enough. I said, what do you mean it's not enough? And she's like, it's not enough. You need to take this thing next level. And I thought, okay, well, what do I do? How do I do that? And she's like, well, there's not, you don't really know where they are in the beginning, and just put more into it, more drama, more adventure. And I thought, well, what and then we started talking back and forth, and I was like, well, what about Paris? Don't they have catacombs there or something? And then so I went and researched them, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is it, because I was going to keep it a nondescript city that people would just have to imagine that it was somewhere in Eastern Europe or something like that. And then I thought, no, let's do this. Let's do the catacombs. Let's research them. Let's research Paris. Let's and honestly, I took Google Earth, and I went down these streets.
Ain't it fun?
I mapped out the routes from all around Paris. Like, where would they go? Where would they give this be? Where would the industrial district be? What is the Seine River like? What does Paris, and it's kind of, this is going to sound a little bit odd, but there was this, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Monster in Paris. It's a cartoon, and my kids love it, and I actually really love it. And it's a little bit of an unusual cartoon. It's set maybe in the early 1900s, and it's a story about a giant flea that and but it's also about Paris, and it takes place in Paris, and it's about an ingenue who sings in a Paris nightclub, and it's got a great metaphor, because the monster turns out to be a person, and the flea turns out to be, but I guess that's a spoiler. But
no, I'm gonna go watch it now. No.
Oh my goodness, I and I think I was captivated by the scene where they were singing, or she sings La Seine, right? And there's a little song in there that's La Seine, and I actually have it on my YouTube watch list, because I watched it in the French, because there are two versions to this movie, and so I listened to the French version, and I watched that whole scene every time I wanted to feel Paris and to be inspired by Paris. And I go back and I watch the movie, and I watch the scene, and I'm in that zone. So I wanted to romanticize Paris a little bit, but also keep it gritty, also keep it like, you know, suspenseful. And I thought the catacombs were what a neat idea to have them do dead drops there, you know.
Yeah, that was so clever. I'm like, what? It was so clever. I mean, it was just the book is clever. It's such a clever book.
Thank you.
I told you that, and
So
it's such a clever book, and this is where authors, you know, we have such an issue with believing in our own work. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a good book. It is a clever book. It is not, you know, you're not going to have the spies running around shooting each other. You opened with a bang.
Yeah.
I was like, oh! Tom Clancy, here we come. But it is just such a clever book, and you are so good with coming up with these names. You know, whenever I have to, oh my gosh, yeah, you guys have got to get
the most fun part, because that's actually that happened out of necessity, because I thought it was a little problem that you run into, like because he faces a lot of different goons and dangers and things like that, and then but he doesn't know any of these people's names, but it's an action sequence. So you've got to be able, as a writer, to refer to these people in a way that, so that they understand who's who and who's doing what. So I just threw nicknames out so that we know who's who. Because when he comes up, I don't want it to be like goon number 1, goon number 2. So in Arthur's mind, he just slaps nicknames on everybody, and it was my little way keeping track of who was doing the action and which goon was which, just because Arthur doesn't know. He doesn't know their names. But he's trying to investigate and find things out. So he just slaps a nickname on everybody.
It's hilarious.
And it ended up sticking, and I just rolled with it. And I was like, let's just do it like this. This is fun.
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, that was great. I love the opening scene. I really enjoy Levi. He's fun. He's like, he is the spy that you would, you know, when you think of a spy, it's like, you know, Tom Clancy type of spy, or, you know, Mission Impossible type of guy. Yeah. Whereas Arthur is, I'm not gonna say anything else. I've made so many comments.
I'll say this. Arthur is Arthur's reality. Arthur is the guy who they really do choose to be a spy. And Levi's a little bit more of the fantasy. And there are spies like him, don't get me wrong. This is real. Like, it's not, I actually, okay, for this book, if I'm take 1 second.
No, you can take one. Oh,
it's just fun. I found it so fun because for this book, I really wanted to do something that was grounded in reality. I didn't want to do things that was a million explosions and gimmicks. I wanted to stay so close to reality that the suspense came from Arthur's mind and the things that he was afraid of, instead of not necessarily the immediate things that were happening to him, but the fact that he's completely on edge, and his overcautiousness is almost a liability, and his you know, I wanted to focus on what spies really do. Like, this is their life. This is their world. They're not flashy like Levi, mostly. Sometimes they have to be. But the fact is that this book is very much like he's a ghost.
Yeah.
Because spies very often are ghosts in their own lives, because spies, the function of a spy is to blend in. It's not to stand out. So I thought, let's do something spy related without the crazy technology and wacky stuff that he pulls out of his briefcase. Like, what would a spy really use in the field? Like, what would he really do in these situations?
So cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. Super carefully, like spycraft, and I've got 2 more books in my Amazon list. So the feds are coming for me.
Oh, I know, right? I know. We've said this before that. Okay, Jess, you've got to add the link, okay?
Oh,
because
can I do that in the comments? Or?
You can do it in the comments. Yes, please.
Okay.
On Facebook.
I'll add the link in the comments. But
yes, please.
Yeah, so that's that was
When
the
you
fun
can.
aspect of it. It's like, but I always like, oh gosh, the feds are going to come to my door between my husband studying to become a cybersecurity and me like so he's buying books on hacking and I'm just going to keep a printed out thing of the manuscript so I can just hand it to the feds.
Hey, that would be, I would laugh my head off. I seriously would be.
Me too.
I'll get a message
Okay, all
at
right.
like, I'll get a message from you at like 10 o'clock. Could you just, like come down to, my house and take care of my children while I'm in federal custody? We laugh. I think authors deal with it. I mean, our history is it's not nothing to be proud of. So, but yeah,
it was crazy. So I've got these 2 new books lined up and the perfect books for what's going to happen next, and
nice.
excited to write the next part of this story. And it's a lot of pressure because I so appreciate you saying it's clever. The whole time I was writing it, I really was like, I'm not smart enough to write this book. I have completely not I'm underwater. Like,
Oh, I know.
I don't know how I'm going to write myself out of this.
You pulled it off somehow. It's just such a fun, clever, not your usual style.
That's no,
go ahead.
No, and that's what I really wanted to do. Like, just try something completely different. And the only reason, it's like the worst kept secret that I wrote it, because like, I don't care. The only reason that I did that were 2 reasons. Was because I wanted to appeal to a male audience who may not jump at the fact that, or may imagine that this is going to end up being a female protagonist, or like an emotions driven book or something like that. And I wanted to just keep it ambiguous so that the more people would feel like it was accessible. And then the second reason was it's so different from what I write that I didn't want people to be like, what, where'd she go?
No, I think though, you can tell it's you.
Yeah.
Because you're good with like details. Without overwhelming. So you're good.
I love details, but I always try to put them in strategically, so they're always pushing the story forward and not wasting a lot of real estate on descriptions, because like I'm huge on efficiency. Like huge. I want it lean, I want it efficient, and I want it emotional, but using the smallest possible. I want the real estate to go to the most impactful words, the words that are going to really put you in the story, pull the story forward. So if to me, like because I don't waste words. Like I'm not efficient to the point where I describe everything and I use descriptive language, but I'm super picky about it. And I just pare it all down to the bare bones, and then I add back in. And so I try very hard to add the details in strategic places so I don't end up with pages of descriptions. But yeah, it is me. It is, and you can tell the quirky little things like Danger and
Dorothea. Danger's great. Hey, do the listeners, watchers, have any questions for Jessica? She will put the link in at the end. She can't do it right now because
then I'll be like awkwardly.
And I can't do it. I can never find the book, so she's got it hidden. It's a hidden book just because it's a spy book.
It's really strange. Amazon, if I put it in by my author name, I can't find it. And if I put it in by the book name, I can't find it. You have to put in J.M. Holt, I for an I, in the Amazon search engine. Otherwise, you'll never find it. I don't know why they did it. They did me dirty.
Well, actually, they're probably doing it because, they're being careful. It's a spy book. Hello. They're hiding it. I know.
It's a ghost book.
It's a ghost book. All right. So We don't have any questions, but yeah, this is fun. I hope, yeah, I know everyone enjoyed it, and you're gonna go back through the comments and you're gonna go, oh my gosh,
Oh, now you have me worried.
no, 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 no. I was a little overzealous.
Now
Anyway,
you really have me worried.
anywho, this was the Anna show after all. I'm sorry. Anyway, so yeah, definitely this is an amazing
No,
book.
I'm glad you were here. You made me feel. You made me like it was a happy accident because I was very nervous.
I wasn't supposed to be here. I was like,
Yeah, glad that you were.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. I always have a good time when you're with you. No, not me. No, somebody said not me. So yeah, they're right. Anyway, I don't know who it is because I can't. I'm not on Facebook because Facebook and StreamYard fight sometimes. So when we're doing a live, you can't have Facebook and StreamYard open when you're doing it. So, anywho, do you have anything to add? Because this is your hour.
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, maybe just a couple of things. This is a fun book. It has quirky characters. It's like it was as close as I could get to a realistic spy novel, something that could feasibly happen, even though it's a fictitious and fun series too. There's a lot of spycraft in it that's real. Everything that's in there is something that is plausible and that is an actual tool that spies have in their toolkit. So that's another fun detail. And then I just hope you guys I could sit here all night.
No. It's good. No, because they're gonna go get the book now.
I think Anne probably wants to go to bed at some point.
I'm like, it's past my bedtime. No.
But yeah, so guys, it's a fun story. It was a lot of fun to write and it's different. So I thank you guys for hanging in with me and going in a little bit of a different direction today. Appreciate it. That it was really fun and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And
yeah, they had a terrible time. Look at this. All these comments. Terrible time.
I have no idea. I haven't looked.
You haven't looked? I wanted to bring some of them up on the screen because they're great. But I'm like, I will disturb her. She's in a zone. So I did not do that.
I was trying to keep the momentum going and not.
Yes.
And then my voice got scratchy and I was like, no.
Okay, ladies.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Jess on again, right? Get some thumbs up for that.
Whenever you want, I will come back. It was really fun and I enjoy it. And I have a little bit of a theater background, so it's fun to.
Yes, you did great with the French. It was very enjoyable. All right, ladies.
I did practice that a little bit just to make sure.
Okay. Good night, ladies. Thank you from Vermont and from, well, I don't want to say it, but North Carolina. From almost Canada.
You're in almost Canada. I am in North Carolina. One day we'll have to explain to people what that's all about because
oh my gosh, we should really because Jess has nothing against Canada.
No, I have nothing against Canada. I do have something against Vermont and states that pretend to be something they're not.
So mean. What has Vermont ever done to you?
It lied to me. It lied to me. Okay?
Lied to you. We okay. You got to explain it real quick. We got like a couple of seconds.
Okay. So I have this weird thing where I thought Vermont was somewhere much farther south than it was. And I was shocked when Anne told me how far north it really is. And so then I just got this thing where I was mad at Vermont for lying to me because I thought it was like near Philadelphia. I don't know. And then Anne was poking fun at me, so I had to poke back, and now I just tell her that she lives in Canada.
Actually, 2 hours north, and we're in Canada.
Yeah,
3 hours to Montreal. So yeah.
See, yeah.
It's,
So it's like, well, you move to Canada, you get Canada.
All right, ladies.
So that's that
Thank
weird
you so
little
much.
in joke because Vermont
Good
lied to
night.
me and told me it was farther south. But anyway, that's it. If you see us teasing each other about that in the comments, that's what that is.
Always. All right, ladies. Good night. Thanks, Jess.
Good night. Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Have a